all day. So join the show now by calling 800-956-7266.
The game's going to be close. Margin of victory is so small, especially in this league. So it's really, the attention to detail, the little things. And so I think the guys really locked in on that this year in the offseason. And I think it's correlated to the field.
We got to do a good job of playing discipline and playing physically tough and, being very sound in what we're doing with all the variety of runs and types of options that you're going to get. And then again, whether trying to sneak guys past you or throw the ball over the top, it's a lot of stress, for everybody.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back into Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. We have hit a beautiful Friday afternoon, evening here in the Palmetto State, heading to what should be a fabulous football weekend, the World Series weekend as well, and, of course, college basketball season creeping up on us, too. Welcome into the program, Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, Professor Tom Hayes from downtown Columbia. So we get ready for what is a critical weekend for a lot of teams here in the state. Of course, South Carolina and Clemson at home facing league rivals in what could be games that will catapult the two schools to some very big things this year. If the Gamecocks can beat Vanderbilt, as we've talked about ad nauseum this week, it really makes that Georgia game next week for them something of ultimate importance. And if Clemson can rebound from its loss and beat Georgia Tech, then you're going to feel like the wheels are back on the track as they go to NC State, knowing what is ahead of them in Raleigh.
It's very interesting to look at both of these games. They will mean the exact same thing for both. And how the two schedules play themselves out is almost identical. Clemson has a team that they should beat coming into their building. South Carolina has a team that they should beat coming into their building. Clemson has a tough road test a week away, as does South Carolina. Clemson's is more winnable than South Carolina's is, but still, these are the kinds of games that Clemson has not had trouble winning in the past. South Carolina has. So in that vein, I need to see a little bit more from South Carolina this week, though the one thing about Clemson is Clemson's coming off a loss, so equally so, you need to see a lot out of the Tigers this week as well, namely the health of Kelly Bryant and no busted coverages on that defense, despite the fact you are going to see predominantly run from Georgia Tech.
I think probably if you're South Carolina from a mental standpoint, we talked about that, I think they've shown better than people thought they were. Key point now is the lines of scrimmage. After a week off, can your defensive line rotation keep its rhythm as it's built a pretty good pass rush through the last couple of games, and putting the starters back in with some guys who got experience on the offensive line? Would it be a more well-oiled machine is the questions to answer there.
Looking at some of the numbers last night on Vanderbilt, their defense can't stop. They couldn't catch a cold. Their defense is terrible stopping the run. If there was ever a week, and we've been saying this, I feel like every year or every week repeatedly with South Carolina, if there was ever a week to establish a run game for South Carolina, this is the week. All three offensive linemen back. I know you don't have Rico Dowdle, but you have a bell cow in Tyson Williams. You've got a bowling ball in Mon Denson. You've got a speed threat in A.J. Turner. You should run it into the ground on the doors.
It should be, but I will tell you this. I always believe in a pop quiz because we know Vandy is terrible against the run. Guess what Vandy was working on all this week? Stopping the run.
Sure.
If you pop some passes, this is when you get the pass on first down to Hayden Hurst. When they're looking for the run, bam.
Well, if I was Kurt Roper this week, I would introduce Jake Bentley to Hayden Hurst this week again, just to kind of make sure that they're acquainted and that they know that they're on the same team. Because sometimes I don't think they know that they're on the same team.
Should find Hayden Hurst, no doubt about it, but still keep finding Brian Edwards, Shi Smith, or Trey Smith. Had some big catches at Tennessee, but get the running game going. You're exactly right. This is a defense at Vanderbilt giving up 242.
Yeah.
242 rushing yards per game. The Gamecocks are only averaging 110, and they bolstered that with their performance against Tennessee. So you're right. A healthy group of offensive linemen now. You've got some depth in the offensive line. Line up and see if you can get the running game going, and you'll know if you have success there, that's going to open up the passing game for you.
Well, how about the passing game open up the running game? And here's the other question, because I think stats can fool you. Suppose Vanderbilt had Alabama and Georgia on the schedule after South Carolina. What would their rushing defense look like?
Wondered about now for Clemson, if there was ever a week to miss 2 corners, would this be the week to have that happen, because you're going up against an offense that doesn't throw it all that much? No Edmond, no Fields. You're going to have at least
well, they've been without those guys. I mean, Edmond's been out a long time, and Fields has missed some games.
Fields went out in the Syracuse game.
Get your point that they don't really have to count on their pass coverage a whole lot. What they've got to be careful about is not getting sucked in and taking your eye off that receiver as you're peeking into the backfield to see what's happening back there. And all of a sudden, the quarterback pulls it back, and there's the receiver down the field.
As Kelly Quinlan told us last night, those wide receivers are some of the best blocking wide receivers, if any, in the country, and that's what they look for there. So you don't want guys like Ryan Carter and Trevon Mullen getting out physical on the boundary.
All right, so we're talking about South Carolina and Clemson coming up tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening. Also on the slate around the state tomorrow, we got Furman at Western Carolina. That should be a good one. Furman, a surging football team right now, and with the way things have developed, they're very much in the hunt in the SoCon. The Citadel going for 2 in a row. It's VMI coming to Charleston. Wofford looking to bounce back from its loss, playing at East Tennessee State. Monmouth will be at Charleston Southern. Kennesaw State will be at Presbyterian. It's Newberry, which is all of a sudden struggling. The Wolves playing at Wingate. Wingate undefeated in the South Atlantic Conference, so they would play the role of spoiler here. They were hoping that this would be a game for them that would determine a league championship, but the way things have turned out, they're going to have to play spoiler. It is going to be Benedict at Albany State, and Limestone playing host to Catawba. And we're going to be talking more with the Limestone folks later on tonight. Coach Mike Furry will join us at 7:05 to talk about his team, which is having a good year. You know, it's only his second season there, and they're in the upper half of the South Atlantic Conference standings. They've had some nice wins this year, coming off a win at Newberry last week, which we'll find out from him. Of course, he's only been there 2 years. I got to believe in the short time that Limestone has been in D2, winning at Newberry has got to go down as the biggest win in their history.
And some of the other action in the state that we're looking at, I'm interested to see how Wofford plays off of that loss to Samford, because I know that Mike Ayers and those guys were cruising, and they looked like they were basically unbeatable for much of this season, and having to come back off a loss for them, it should be interesting with their East Tennessee State contest.
You look at all the close losses, though. It used the cliche that sometimes you felt like they were whistling past the graveyard at some point, and they knew the shoe was going to drop on them. You still haven't got your guy to change his name to Fury. We can't pronounce it Fury.
Well, that's how we pronounced it originally, and that would be great. What a name for a football coach, Mike Fury. But, you know, he played in the NFL. Name is Mike Furry, and that's how it is pronounced, and that's how we will pronounce it when he joins us.
You should be at a place where they call them the Bears, you know, with Furry, you know, Furry Bears.
Well, that's true. That would work. He's with the Saints.
I know. I understand.
Let's see what else is going on. NASCAR this weekend at Martinsville, and the big guys don't hit the track until tomorrow, and they're going to qualify and race on the same afternoon.
That's crazy.
Well, that's Martinsville, and that's, you know, I think part of the problem with NASCAR is a couple of things. Well, I say part of the problem, then I say a couple of things.
Season's
but I mean,
long.
Well, besides that, you know, if you're a fan like me, and I like the sport and I try to keep up with it, but everything changes from week to week. There's no standardization. Used to be, you know, practice, qualify on Friday,
a little happy hour action, and then
do
Sunday,
stuff on Saturday and race on Sunday. But now they've moved it all around, different TV networks and all this kind of stuff. It's just hard to keep up for the common man. If you want to join us, 800-956-7266. Give us your thoughts about the weekend. We've got the football filibuster coming up, Lee Sterling, Mike Furry, and a whole bunch more here on Sports Talk. All right, we're back with the Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network here on a Friday night from beautiful downtown Columbia. If you're stuck in traffic somewhere around the state, as you know you are, take your time. You'll get to your destination in due course.
A lot of people around town this week with the home football week, and it's homecoming.
Homecoming at South Carolina, exactly. But people are heading out all different areas of the state. So we thank you for tuning in with us tonight, joining us for Sports Talk. Let us be your guide to wherever you are heading. And when you get there, stay with us on your smartphone. You can go to our website, listen to us on our YouTube stream, or pick us up on one of the stations that stream on iHeartRadio, or also the TuneIn app. Always want to make sure you stay with us throughout the entire program. We're brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy. All right, David Shelton coming up in just a moment, but our producer tonight, Stockton Burke, who is a student over at USC and is part of fraternity life over there, has some information he wants to share. You know, here on Sports Talk, we like to give back to the world from time to time. And so when something nice is going on to help raise money for a worthwhile charity, we like to help as well. So Stockton is going to tell us what some of the fraternities over at USC are working on. Stockton?
Well, Corin, thank you very much for letting me jump on real quick. As you said, I am a member of the Greek life over at the University of South Carolina, and my fraternity, along with others, are getting together to put on an event for members of the South Carolina community that have passed away recently. It is in the name of Justin Lopes, who was a Kappa Sigma at South Carolina and passed away. And all of the proceeds for this event, which is a low country broil, which will be taking place next week, will be going to the Military Heroes campaign, which helps out veterans across the state. So really a great cause. Tickets are $15. The date will be next week at some point. They're still figuring that out. But anytime, for any sort of donation or any ticket that would like to be purchased, you could reach out to me. My number is 336-413-4869. Once again, that's 336-413-4869. So I really appreciate you letting me jump on there real quick to talk about that.
That's great. That's great. How many fraternities are combining for this effort? Do you happen to know?
I do not know exactly, but I believe it is somewhere around 10 fraternities and sororities that are involved in this event.
And the money that you guys are raising in the memory of, who was this individual?
Well, it's in the memory of about 15 people that were members of Greek life that have passed away in the recent years. But it is in the name, the event, I guess, is in the name of Justin Lopes, who was a Kappa Sig who passed away a couple years ago.
All right. So is there any way online people can do something, or just call the phone number?
There is a way online. There's a link, but that link would be way too long for me to say over the air. So if you could just reach out to 336-413-4869, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, Stockton. Thank you, man.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it very much. All right, with that done, let's welcome in David Shelton of the High School Sports Report and the Charleston Post and Courier. David, we have hit that mark. The last Friday night of the regular season, playoffs begin next week. So that means tonight you've got region championships, you've got playoff positioning, you've got rivalry games. Makes for a great Friday night, and the weather's going to be nice.
Absolutely. For me, this is week one of the playoffs. I've always said that the last game of the regular season for a lot of teams is a playoff game. It's going to be a playoff atmosphere, region title, rivalry games like the one I'm at. And it's going to be a great night of football. There's going to be a lot of great scores coming in tonight. And to me, the playoffs begin tonight, even though they officially begin this is like, for me, week 0 of the playoff. Kicked everybody off. But this is week 0 of the postseason.
You can't use that phrase. The high school league owns that phrase.
Yeah, I know, and it makes everybody so mad during the season. Is this week 9 or week 10 or week 11 or whatever?
I know.
It's week 0 of the postseason.
All right.
Matters.
So to carry on Joyner with a big test with that Somerville defense, is this something where you think this might be his biggest test before the postseason, or do you think that he'll be equal to it?
Oh, he'll be up to it. I mean, he's got a lot of help. I mean, he's got some outstanding skill people, big offensive line. Their defense is really, really strong, really good up front, great linebackers, secondary, just a bunch of ball hawks back there. Somerville's got their hands full. I mean, this will be the best team that Fort's played since Dutch Fork. But I think Dutch Fork may be a tad better overall than Somerville. But Somerville will give them a fight because it's a rivalry, but I just don't know how long they can stick with them.
David, what about the improvement in Somerville this year? Let's see. How many years removed are they from Coach McKissick? How many years has it been?
This is Joe's third year.
Okay.
Joe Call, his grandson's third year.
Yeah.
They are improving. They have made tremendous strides, and I thought they would. I really thought last year they lost several close games that kind of resulted in their record being what it was. They've been able to win those close games, won a couple games by less than a touchdown. Their only loss was to Berkeley, who's a really good 4A team, and they played without 8 players in that game. So, they're coming, and their JV program and B team program, their numbers are building back up. So, I definitely think Somerville is on the upswing. I just don't know that they're quite ready for tonight. Like I said, I think they'll compete pretty well, but man, slowing down that. I mean, to beat Fort, you got to score 21, 28 points. Nobody's done that. I mean, Dutch Fort did, but they scored late to kind of get to 25.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be hard for Somerville to win the game.
All right, let me look at a few of these games that impact the region titles and get your take on who's going to win. For example, let's go to York and South Points. Bobby Carroll got a good team at York and going back to the monster he created at South Point tonight.
Yeah, another situation where South Point's going to be favored. They're probably the better team. York's got a chance to stay in the game and make it competitive. I just don't think they got enough to beat South Point. And I mean, it would be crazy for me to pick South Point to lose when I said they wouldn't lose all year.
Mm-hmm.
But that will be a game that will the intensity level and all that other stuff, all the backstories, will keep that thing competitive. And I don't think South Point's going to win 48-7, but they could because they're that good.
All right. What about this Greenville Belton Honeypath game? The Bevel kid, the quarterback at Greenville, really starting to get a lot of attention now. And I guess that's a pretty high-powered offense he's running there at Greenville.
Yeah, they run the football very well, and he's a big-time quarterback, real big kid. He's about 6'6", 230 or so. He can throw it around a little bit, but they got a good running game. They have a very good receiver in Ty Helms. Belton Honeypath's really good on defense, and they run the football. They can control the clock. This will be, Greenville didn't handle very well when they played Greer. They didn't handle that matchup very well. So this will be another challenge for them. Not sure if they can beat Belton, but I think it'll be a competitive game.
Timberland has won 13 of the previous 14 against Bishop England. Does it happen tonight for the Bishops, or do you think Timberland rolls and gets the championship there?
Well, this is the best team that Bishop England's had since they beat Timberland in 2011. So, they have the personnel, the potential to win that game. But like you said, you almost have to go with history. Timberland just handled them so easily. I mean, of the 13 wins, they've had 8 shutouts. And 11 times Bishop England's only scored 1 touchdown or less. So I think Timberland's going to win the game, but I think Bishop England's got a shot.
All right, real quick before we let you go, one more. In 1A, Lakeview, Hemingway. Who do you like?
I like Hemingway. I think Hemingway's the second best team in 1A behind Lamar. I saw Hemingway earlier this year. I think they're going to win that football game.
Hey, David, enjoy the night. Where are you headed? I know where you're headed. Fort D in Somerville?
Nope. I'm at Berkeley Cane Bay, which is another region championship game and big rivalry game. So crowd's already filling in. It's going to be a big night.
Oh, I imagine BB is over at Somerville Fort D.
Roger Lee is over there.
Roger Lee. Roger that. Okay.
Yeah, Roger that.
We'll talk to you tonight on the scoreboard.
Okay.
David Shelton, High School Sports Report, and the Post and Courier. We call him Bib for Best in Business, which he is without question. Back in a moment. All right, welcome back into Sports Talk. It is that time of the week, the most important moments of your week, as we bring to you two of the great citizens of the state of South Carolina. One, a former governor, one, a current employee of the state of South Carolina, one still living off the money he made from the state of South Carolina. That would be the former governor, Jim Hodges. Governor, how are you?
I'm doing fine, but I sure hope I'm not living off what I made as governor of South Carolina.
Oh, come. I know what you guys make over there. That's public record. We all know.
Fun job. Fun job.
And Attorney General Alan Wilson. Alan, how you doing?
Well, I think it's pretty sad when you tell your listeners that the most important moment of the week is with the two of us.
I was wondering about that.
Hey, listen, it's not often that our listeners get a chance. Well, actually, for 2 hours a night, 5 nights a week, they get a chance to hear from some of South Carolina's elite. But you're even a notch or two above us. So
You're stepping in it, son.
we hold you in high esteem, the two of you.
Let me borrow your boots.
No, when it comes to things that you've accomplished in your lives. Now, when it comes to picking games, that's a whole nother story. Then again, you're both over 500 picking against the spread, which is an accomplishment in and of itself. Last week, you both went 2-3. So, Governor Hodges, you are 23-17. And General Wilson, you are 21-19, just 2 games back. Governor Hodges used to dominate this series, General. Then a guy named Beasley came along and showed him a thing or two. So, it's kind of a bounce back time for him.
Hey, I'm just proud that I'm only 2 games down because I did this a couple of years ago, and I think I was 2 games down after the first week, and I never, ever saw him again. So I feel like the fact that it's this late in the season and I can still see his taillights, I'm happy.
Well, you sound a lot more sure of yourself this time around compared to then.
Well, Jim's getting older.
Yeah.
You know, and the middle factors are starting to slip, so I feel like I can take advantage of that.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Governor, any response to that?
Well, I'm hanging out over here at Still Hopes at the nursing home. but I am able to reach up to the table and get my phone so I can pick games.
Good. And you got good people around you, I'm sure, to make sure that, you don't drool all over your paper and can't read the wording and stuff like that.
People say the same stuff about you.
I know. That's what I hear. That's where I'm taking it from. I hear the same stuff all the time. We know it's not true. All right, let's get to our games, guys. And let's begin with, and General, we'll let you go first, and we'll alternate between you guys. So, General Wilson, it's Georgia-Florida week down in Jacksonville. The Gators getting 13.5 in this neutral site affair. Now, what do you think?
So this one was probably one of the easier picks for me, and I based it solely on Georgia's record. When you look at Georgia's 4 games against SEC opponents, they're averaging among those 4 opponents 31 points over the SEC foes.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go with Georgia. I think Florida's got some issues. Georgia's been dominant in the SEC, averaged 31 points a game, so I'm going with Georgia for the points.
All right, Governor Hodges, what do you want to do?
Well, the cocktail party is always a lot of fun and normally a close game, but I think the General is right here. Georgia is starting to look like a little Alabama, which means that they're able to beat the spread. So I'm gonna pick Georgia.
Yeah, it's the most unusual season for Georgia because, first of all, most of their players are not in jail. And usually by this time of the season, you got 10 or 15 suspended, and I'd keep a close watch on them in Jacksonville.
What did they put in your Dunkin' Donuts today, man?
A lot of extra caramel. There's a lot of real sweet stuff in there.
I can tell they put some caramel in there and some nuts because you are salty today, sir.
NC State at Notre Dame and the Irish laying 7, General. No, I'm sorry. Hang on. I'm sorry, Governor. Let's let you lead this time. Laying 7, the Irish.
I am going to take the Irish. I like the way they've been playing lately, and I know NC State's been pretty good, but I've just got a feeling that the Irish are going to win this one by 10 points. So I will take them.
General?
I'm with the Governor, Notre Dame.
Okay. Not going to make up any ground if you copy each other.
Well, we have time for amendments.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. All right. Penn State at Ohio State. And It is the Buckeyes, favored by 6.5 in Columbus. Attorney General Wilson.
I've been liking Penn State's running game, and I just have a gut that Penn State can, if they lose this game, they'll lose it by less than 6.5. So I'm going to go with Penn State.
You want the points, Governor?
I'm with the General. I think Ohio State wins, but I think it's going to be a field goal game. So Penn State.
Penn State for the two of you. All right, Governor Hodges. Let's get local. Vanderbilt at USC. It's homecoming. Are you returning for homecoming, participating in the parade or anything like that?
I am not. I'm at Pawleys Island right now. I won't be back in time for the game. But I am going to take the Gamecocks. I think we're playing better. Vanderbilt certainly doesn't do much against the run, and I think we're going to have a good running game and win it by at least 10.
Yeah, I think they should have a parade of former governors who graduated from USC as part of the homecoming festivities. I think that'd be kind of neat.
That has a ring to it, doesn't it?
Yeah. Who else that you know of became governor who went to USC? Anybody else off the top of your head?
Well, a lot of them went to law school. Beasley went to law school there. I went to law school there. Allen has a USC degree. So we've got a whole host of them.
Yeah, but as I sit here and think recently, governor-wise, it's been mostly Clemson, right? Because Haley's a Clemson fan. Beasley's a Clemson fan. Who else?
Campbell went to South Carolina. I think he finished somewhere else, but I believe Governor Campbell went to USC.
McMaster went to Carolina.
He's a
McMaster
USC.
went to Carolina. Yeah, that's right.
I think Strom was a Clemson guy, right?
Strom was.
Yeah,
he was. You're correct.
General, what do you think about the USC Vanderbilt?
Man, I struggle with this one. We were joking today. Southside's got the best red zone defense in the SEC and the worst red zone offense in the SEC. This game has always been close, and I really struggle with this one. And I know I'm not going to pull away from the governor by agreeing with him on every one, but my heart and my gut's telling me to go with USC.
All right, you want the Gamecocks as well. All right, let's review. Both of you want Georgia. Both of you want Notre Dame. Both of you want Penn State, and both of you want South Carolina. That's just the kind of diversity in thinking we look for here on the football filibuster. All right, let's go to Georgia Tech at Clemson. And General, the Tigers are favored by 14.
So Georgia Tech, I think, has lost, 2 games, both by 1 point each. I think they lost to Tennessee, which is a little shocking now. They've lost to Miami, which I think is ranked 8. They lost by 1 point. They've been pretty dominant elsewhere. But Clemson, what brought me back to Clemson is they've had a bye week, and they got to get the stink out of their mouth from that loss 2 weeks ago. So I feel like Clemson has got something to prove, and I think Clemson being at home will cover it. So I'm going with Clemson. All
right, laying the 14, Governor Hodges.
I'm going to take the points in Georgia Tech. I think Clemson wins this one, easily, but 14 points is a lot of points, and they've got that funky offense. So, and it's pretty darn good this year. So I think it'll be 13 or under, and I'll take Tech and the points.
Tech and the points. Okay, Alan. Amendment time here during the football filibuster. Any changes you'd like to make?
No. I know it's a one for this week with the governor being up 2. But my goal is to hug him tight until we get into the last stretch. So I think I'm gonna keep it.
He's already going to the 4 corners, Governor.
Well, he needs to be careful about saying he's going to hug me tight this week with all these allegations.
Wow. Oh, you had to go there, didn't you?
But otherwise, I get the point.
we just not even skating around it today.
We're going to let you two deal with that off air. Governor Hodges, any amendments for you, or are you sticking with what you got?
I'm going to stick with what I have.
You're good to go. Okay, guys. Listen, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we'll talk to you next week. Best of luck.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Governor Hodges and General Wilson.
A little low.
Yeah,
really.
A
little low blow from Governor Hodges.
Governor Hodges pulling out the old hammer and taking it to the knees there.
You go.
We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. David Shelton was with us earlier. His high school report brought to you by Farm Bureau Insurance. With new auto insurance rates from Farm Bureau Insurance, you could be saving a whole lot of money. Even if you've received a quote before, rates are now more competitive than ever. So go get a no-obligation quote today at favrates.com. Let's continue with the help that we give you here on Sports Talk every Friday night. We go from the rank amateurs to the professional as we welcome in Lee Sterling from ParamountSports.com with his thoughts on some of the top games this week, coming off a 1-3 week for us last week.
No, not for you. I let Will down.
Yeah.
I let Will down.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Lee.
Yeah, my fault. I admit it.
I can't pay my rent now. You realize that.
But more importantly, how did you do for your customers, your clients?
Actually lost. It was a bad week, worst week this year. We still won 7 and 9 weeks. So this is what I'm going to do. Normally, for a one-day all-access pass, it's $77 to $97 on a Saturday or Sunday. I'm going to give new clients, if they come on board, how about this, 5 days. Tonight, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, we start college football, MAC style, 5 days of action of my phone service. That's going to be probably 14, 15 ball games, $57. It's all available, ParamountSports.com.
Okay.
I'm going to bounce back.
That's a nice gift.
You're just giving it away, man. You're just giving it away.
He needs to build back the trust in the clients. That's what he's doing. That's
Listen,
a good thing.
This is not a sprint. It's a marathon, okay? You have your ups and your downs. And by the way, I don't know if you heard this today with what the NASDAQ did. We now have a new richest man in the world. Who's the guy that is the head of Amazon?
Jeff Bezos.
He went to my wife and my daughter's high school.
Really?
Jeff Bezos.
Well, he's now the richest man in the world after what Amazon did today on the stock market.
And how about this? I heard they've solicited him for money. I think they're asking for $25,000 or $50,000 for new instruments for the band, which I think he was in high school, and either got no response or he turned them down.
Oh, dang. That's why he's so rich. He doesn't give it away.
That's me. I mean, I told someone if I win like $100 million, I'm going to give every relative $1 million, and friends, we're going to have a good time. I can tell you that.
Absolutely.
Save some for us, man.
All right, let's get to your games for this week, Lee. And by the way, the way folks can get the information, what's the best way?
Just call me here at the office, 800-400-9741. We can take your order online at ParamountSports.com. You can call me. I'll speak to you personally. A lot of free info up there also. So let's say another game is out there that you want to hear me break down and predict. And there's Ohio State and Penn State, TCU, Iowa State, NFL games, Houston and Seattle. They're all up and available at ParamountSports.com.
All right, let's get to what you've got for us, beginning with Notre Dame, 7-point favorite against NC State at home.
And in this game, I think that Notre Dame is the better team. And if you watch them, what they use a lot of different formations. They use a lot of motion. Most teams use the motion, and they're trying to find out whether you're playing man or a zone. I think Notre Dame does it as a decoy, and then they just run it right down your throats with Josh Adams, who's averaging 9.2 yards per carry and almost 1,000 yards rushing on the ground. And we're a little over the halfway point. North Carolina State, though, can stop the run, number 6 in the country, giving up just 91 yards per game. I like the body language this year. Ryan Finley, last year, I thought that he was playing scared. I thought the team didn't believe him. Not the case this year. 11 touchdowns, no interceptions. And coming off the bye, I think is big for NC State. They doing 5-0-1 against the spread off the bye, and this is where he usually puts in a trick play or two. I think Notre Dame's going to win 27-23, but the Wolfpack cover.
All right, very good. Should be a heck of a ball game. What about the South Carolina Vanderbilt game here in Columbia? Gamecocks favored by 6.
Gamecocks, I mean, just 3 offensive turnovers in 5 conference games. Impressive. This Vanderbilt defense, I memean, they don't have anything left. They're allowing almost 50 points per game in the 4 conference games this year. And Gamecocks 5-2, just 1 win away from bowl eligibility. They get it here, 31-20.
All right, and to the upstate, the night game, Clemson, 2 touchdowns over Georgia Tech.
Yeah, even though Clemson has the bye week coming into this game, do you really want to lay 2 touchdowns with Kelly Bryant? He's come out and said I think he's not close to 100%, but he will play in this game. I don't think Dabo has any real kind of trust in these backups yet. And Georgia Tech, they shorten the game with that option offense. You might only have 7 possessions in a game, so you got to score probably 5 or 6 of them if you want to cover a big spread here. Marshall runs that offense well for Georgia Tech, usually makes the right decision, whether to keep it, hand off, or pitch it out. And, this Georgia Tech team seems to play better when they play every week. They didn't look real sharp when they played Miami. They looked last week late in the game like they were really playing well. And the Tigers are week 2, 6-1 against the spread as an ACC host. Clemson wins 30-21, but Georgia Tech covers.
I like it.
And the game of the week, Georgia, Florida.
Yeah, big one here for Georgia. I mean, they're in the national championship hunt. Florida, 3-3. We're going to find out if they've got anything left. You want to get that game? Just call 800-400-9741. Like I said, you want to get the 5 days of my executive phone service, $57. It's all available. ParamountSports.com.
Always, my friend, thank you for being with us. Have a very successful weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Lee Sterling with us here on Sports Talk, our Sterling picks every Friday night. We've had somebody holding for a while, so let's reward him with an opportunity to join us here on Sports Talk with his comment or question. It's John in Rock Hill. Hey, John, thank you for your patience.
Hey, how you guys?
What's up, John?
Fine.
Hey, so I just had a fall on the NASCAR race this weekend.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my favorite driver is Jimmy Johnson.
Okay.
And since he's in this round, he's in the final 8. These are 3 good tracks for him. He has like a combined 20 wins on these 3 tracks. I think like 9 at Martinsville. So I think this is a great opportunity for him this weekend, and I think he'll punch his ticket to Homestead Miami's championship.
I think you'll want to be listening about 40 minutes from now because Monty Dutton has some very similar thoughts about Jimmy Johnson in our Full Monty on NASCAR segment, as I think he picked Jimmy Johnson as well.
I think a lot of NASCAR fans are really just chomping at the bit to see if he makes his move, which he usually does at this time of year. But I think they're going to crown another champion.
This is a little late for him, though. I mean, usually he's had a win or 2 in the playoffs since they went to this format. The thing with him was win early in the season, secure your spot in the postseason, then just sort of win here and there. Yeah, just get through the season and then turn it up.
Yeah. He puts
in
it
the postseason.
He puts it in cruise control. Corn.
Is that what he is?
It's
called flipping the switch.
I thought maybe he might shift into high gear.
No, gliding is cruise control.
All right, coming up after the break, we will get the recruiting report to you. Got a lot of good stuff for you there. Also, Mike Furry, head coach of Limestone, will join us. Mitch Light, who is with the Vanderbilt radio crew, will join us to tell us about the Commodores from his standpoint. And, of course, we've got the full Monty on NASCAR coming up. And we'll talk about our picks as well for the coming weekend of college football games. We got all the picks in from the elite panel of college football experts here on Sports Talk. So we'll bring that to you as well in our next hour. So we've got a lot to come your way. And we've got Game 3 of the World Series, too, right around the corner.
Colors and Hugh Darvish.
Yeah. In Houston, where Houston has not lost in the postseason this year.
And Hugh knows that lineup well because he pitched in that division with the Texas Rangers.
He did.
Now, what's their record with the roof closed?
They only had the roof open 14 times this year.
Okay.
So they've basically been predominantly closed the entire year.
All right, it's top of the hour. We'll be back.
Yeah, they don't open that roof.
Round 2 of Sports Talk up next with your hosts Phil Kornblut, Will Pelagic, and the Professor Tom Hayes. Don't leave us hanging. Join the show, 800-956-7266.
We continue with Sports Talk here on this Friday night from downtown Columbia. A busy, busy Friday night for you. We'll get to recruiting in just a few minutes. A major piece of news just coming out regarding some football stuff. We'll tell you about that in a little bit. But let's continue talking about some of the top games coming up this weekend, and that includes over at Limestone, a big one against Catawba. As the Saints and Catawba play at 1 o'clock tomorrow over at the reservation in Gaffney. Coach Mike Furry of Limestone joining us now. He's got his Saints at 4-4 and 3-2. And, man, what a move you guys have made this season so far. Congratulations. How do you feel about what you guys have gotten to at this point?
Well, first of all, I appreciate it. Yeah, we're pretty excited. Obviously, we feel like we've left a couple out there this past season, but so far we're pretty excited. And obviously, coming off a win last week against Newberry, we're obviously a great conference that we play in, and we knew the competition was going to be hard, and it will continue again tomorrow.
You know, I know you're new in the program, and for that matter, the program itself is not all that old. But I've got to believe that the win at Newberry, considering what Newberry has become, winning on the road, league game, and doing it the way that you did, it's got to be the biggest win in the program's history as a D2 program.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're right. I mean, obviously, Coach Knight and what they've done down there at Newberry is obviously very respectable, and what a great job they've done over the last couple of years. And to be able to go down there kind of with our backs against the wall a little bit, and then going into halftime down 17-0 at their place on homecoming weekend, and then to be able to walk away with the win 27-24 is obviously, you're right, I would say the biggest win in our program history so far.
What did you think about your quarterback? You had to break in a new one last week, and he helped lead that comeback for you.
Yeah, DJ Phillips is obviously a freshman that transferred into us here this past spring, and including himself and our staff, we did not think he was completely ready, and something clicked here a couple weeks ago where he just kind of started getting it, and we did feel as a staff this past weekend it was going to be best for our football program to make a change at the quarterback position, and so we kind of went into the game unknown of how DJ would handle it. We weren't going to say, hey, you're going in for one series, and if you don't do well, we'll switch it back out and kind of go from there. We just told him, say, hey, listen, this is your ball game, and no matter what happens, we're going to stand by you, and we'll fix what we need to fix, and just go out and have fun. And obviously, anybody that throws for 400 yards in a game, let alone their first college start, is obviously a great performance, and we're excited for him. But I think we're more impressed the fact that he's kind of dug back into it this week and settled back in and said, listen, that game's over. Let's get ready for the next one.
Coming into last year with a clean slate and new systems offensively and defensively, less than 2 years into this system, how difficult has it been to develop leadership within the football team?
First of all, to be honest with you, out of all the respect for the seniors last year and our football team last year, I mean, it was kind of a hectic process for those kids. We got here in June, and full staff in June and July, started camp in August, and tried to put a system, offensively, defensively, and special teams wise, really install everything during training camp. So in due respect to all those guys, that was really difficult. I think just as a whole entire program. And so I think this year when you have the structure of your program kind of indented and you had a spring under our belt to, kind of not so much clean house as much as kind of reorganize, the roster and the guys that we knew were all in to bring them back, and then obviously bring in our new class this year. I'm not saying this is year one for us, but this is definitely the first year, that we've had an entirety of a program to be able to have an all season and a spring ball and obviously a summer. And so that I think our guys have done a great job, and obviously that's why we're a young football team, but we're excited where we're at.
Well, I mean, the program is only now 4 years old, and you've got a chance to get your first winning season. What would that mean to your program to get over the hump and get that first winning record for an entire season if you can get it done?
Well, I think it's big. I think last year, obviously last year we had a chance to do it, and even now our guys believe in it, and obviously that's a big deal and a step in our program where our guys are walking on the football field knowing they believe they have a chance to compete. And, we're not talking about wins and losses anymore. We're not talking about going in with high expectations. Our goal right now is a football program, and it will continue no matter how successful we do become. But our goal in our program is to, make sure that we have a chance to compete week in and week out, and believe in that and prepare for that. And I think our guys have done an outstanding job, obviously, getting involved and believing in that system, believing in what we're teaching them. And I think being able to have a winning season is a big deal. And so hopefully we'll be able to compete for that tomorrow.
All right. And what does Catawba show you?
Well, again, Catawba's coming off 2 years ago where they won the SAC. And so every weekend in our conference is not light. And, obviously coming off a game against Newberry with some energy, going in against another team like Catawba, they're a football team that's very sound offensively and defensively. They got playmakers on both sides of the ball, and they're playing at a high level right now. So, right now we've got to make sure that we match that, and our guys are ready for that. And like I said, we're just very fortunate and blessed to have the opportunity to be able to go compete in the SAC tomorrow as a member, and obviously compete against a great program, and we're looking forward to it.
All right. Hey, considering the state of one of your former NFL teams, the Cleveland Browns, you think you could suit up and help them Sunday if they needed you?
My wife just showed me at dinner time right now in front of all my players that I was still in a unsigned free agent. So I'm retired, but I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. And I know what they're going through, but sports is sports, and it's part of it. But right now, we look forward to tomorrow at 1 o'clock against Catawba.
Hey, good luck to you, Coach. We appreciate it. We'll talk to you again soon.
Guys, I appreciate you bringing us on, and it speaks volume for our program and Limestone College, so we appreciate it.
Well, we thank you. Always good talking to you. Mike Furry, head coach at Limestone, a man who led the NFC in receptions with the Lions back in 2006. He had 98 catches back then. So he was a baller coming out of Northern Iowa. He was an All-American in Northern Iowa, went into the NFL and did some nice things. Okay, we thank him. Let's give you some recruiting now here on Sports Talk while we have the opportunity. First of all, defensive back Brendan Radley Hiles of IMG Academy in Florida has been to Nebraska and Texas for officials. This weekend he's going to Oklahoma. Then he's going to Clemson November 17th. He's not sure when he might take a fifth official visit. Clemson is on him very strongly. And, of course, he's got a couple of teammates who are Clemson commitments, so they're on him strongly as well. Of course, he likes Mike Reed, and he was at Clemson for the Auburn game. So Clemson's still very much in the hunt for him, though he is a Nebraska commitment at this point. Defensive back Devod Wilson of Miami will take an official to USC this weekend. He's been a Florida commitment, but USC's Travaris Robinson has been down to check on him, has kept up the recruiting pressure. His coach told us this afternoon that the Gamecocks have a decent chance to turn him after this visit at some point. He is coming in with his mom for the visit because they played last night, so they're flying in today. He has got official visits also set with Georgia November 17th and Florida on November 24th. But according to his coach, the Gamecocks have a good chance here to perhaps turn him from Florida. 2019 quarterback Davis Bevel of Greenville High picked up his first FBS offer earlier this week from Pittsburgh. He was very excited about that. He's been to USC, Clemson, Duke, and Virginia Tech this season, and he's going to visit Pitt this coming Saturday. I got a couple of other notes, including a big in-state offer to tell you about in a moment. All right, we'll be checking in just a moment with Mitch Lights from the Vanderbilt play-by-play crew to find out more about the Commodores and their preparation for South Carolina tomorrow afternoon here in Columbia. Let me wrap up recruiting, just a couple of more notes to go. This afternoon, Clemson offered linebacker Channing Tindall of Spring Valley. That's according to TigerIllustrated.com. He's basically been down to South Carolina, Georgia, and maybe a little Florida in there. Now Clemson trying to get into the fight for him. This weekend, official visits for USC from defensive back Asante Samuel Jr. and, as I mentioned, Devad Wilson. Also, Tyndall is supposed to be there unofficially. Tight end James Mitchell, offensive lineman Dylan Wanham. Clemson this weekend, officials from defensive end KJ Henry. Also, offensive lineman Cade Mays, a Tennessee commitment, is scheduled for an unofficial visit. Some other officials of note: offensive lineman Jordan McFadden of Dorman to Virginia Tech, and defensive back C.J. Smith, who's been to USC officially, to Oklahoma. Clemson targets defensive back Tyreek Johnson, defensive back Pat Surtain, offensive lineman Jamari Sawyer, and offensive lineman Jackson Carman, all going to Ohio State. USC target defensive end Dorian Gerald of the College of the Canyons Junior College in California has set an official visit to Louisville for December 8th. He visits USC on the 17th. And defensive back Kelvin Joseph of Baton Rouge, a former LSU commitment, still has LSU #1 on his list. He has taken an official to LSU. He'll visit Alabama November 4th and Clemson the following weekend. 2019 running back Tony Mathis Jr. of Cedartown, Georgia, will be at USC tomorrow. 2019 kicker and punter Aiden Swanson of IMG Academy plans to visit Clemson on Saturday. He has a preferred walk-on offer from the Tigers. And in baseball, left-hander Cole Ganopoulos of Chattahoochee Valley Junior College in Alabama committed to USC for the 2018 class. He was 6-0 last season with a 1.33 ERA. There you go with the recruiting for now here on Sports Talk. Be sure to check it out regularly on our website, sportstalksc.com, and on Twitter, use the hashtag STRecruiting.
Homecoming weekend here in Columbia as the Gamecocks get ready for Vanderbilt, as South Carolina comes in with a 5-2 record, 3-2 in the SEC. Vanderbilt 3-4, 0-4 in the conference. The man who roams the sidelines for the Vanderbilt Radio Network, Mitch Light, is on our hotline right now. And Mitch, as Vanderbilt has gone this year, it's been very interesting to see that schedule. I don't know who Derek Mason made mad in the SEC scheduling offices, but that is a tough ask of a schedule with all those 4 games in a row. What does this Commodore team look like? Is it as bad as the record looks?
Yeah, and to start that gauntlet was a Kansas State non-conference, which is a very physical team. And I talked to Andy Ludwig, the offensive coordinator, who has been in coaching for 30 years, and he said he's never played a 4-game gauntlet at any of his stops before that. So the team is remarkably healthy as far as like guys hurt and who won't play. I'm sure there's a lot of bumps and bruises as every team is at this point of the season. A lot of guys banged up, but physically they're fine. Mentally, I don't know where they are. I mean, a really tough stretch playing 4 ranked teams in a row. Then you go down to Oxford in a game where you think you can win. You beat Ole Miss at home last year, and you give up 59 or 57 points. So I think the bye week came at a really good time for this team to kind of refocus all those cliches. So I mean, I think they're pretty confident. They feel good for the stretch run. But the defense has been so porous over the past month. It's one of those things you got to see it to believe it.
Lack of a better term, through the carnage, Sherman's looked pretty good at quarterback, very efficient, especially when Vanderbilt can get in the red zone.
Yeah, he's really good. He is a really, really good quarterback. He has improved dramatically in his, played some as a true freshman. Really struggled through the first 2/3 of last season as a sophomore, then really found his groove late in the season. And he's been really good. His accuracy has been strong, making good decisions. The thing that really hurt in the Ole Miss game was protection. And then I talked to some offensive coaches. Some of that was on him, too. This is a team that gave up 3 sacks total in its first 6 games, gave up 7 sacks against Ole Miss, really had some trouble with some of Ole Miss's blitzes and stuff. So I think what you'll see tomorrow is maybe some more max protection. and keeping some running backs in to try and protect Kyle Shermer, because he is clearly the most important player on this football team.
Talking with Mitch Light of Vanderbilt's Broadcasting, and that's interesting. You made stand running back like Ralph Webb, who's kind of been the heart and soul of that offense the past couple of years. When did they make the transition to more of a passing team versus a running team, or was that by necessity because maybe some issues with the offensive line?
Yeah, you stole my phrase. And with out of necessity, Ralph Webb, it's really confusing. And I've seen as a sideline reporter, I've seen every Vanderbilt game of Ralph Webb's career. But this is a team that the last 2.5 years, Ralph Webb had 1,000-yard seasons, and Vanderbilt couldn't throw the ball, and everyone knew they couldn't throw the ball. But yet he was able to get yards. This year, with an improved passing attack, improved wide receiver play, through the first 6 games, Vanderbilt could not run. And it wasn't just playing Alabama and Georgia. It was the opener against Middle Tennessee. Ralph Webb averaged like 2 yards a carry. There's 2 new starters in the offensive line. They moved the starting guard to center. So for whatever reason, the line was pass protecting better, but could not run block at all. That changed a lot at Ole Miss. He rushed for 170 yards, showed some really nice bursts, had a 38-yard touchdown run. I don't know if that was a product of Ole Miss not being very good on defense, or the offense has kind of turned the corner a little bit. So I'll be really interested to see, because if they can get the running game going again with Ralph Webb to complement the passing attack, football is a pretty simple sport. If you go in fast, you're going to have more success on offense.
You mentioned the running defense, or at least the defense in general, which you said is porous. The run defense has not been good. The passing defense has been a little bit better. Is it the competition? Because I know that you have 2 big running attacks in Alabama and Georgia that your team has played, or are there some weak points and weaknesses in that defense?
Both. Georgia and Alabama. I've been doing this for 5.5 years, and Georgia and Alabama were clearly the 2 best teams I've seen in person. And you know how those teams are built. They like to run the ball. They run the ball very well. But Ole Miss doesn't run the ball very well, and Jordan Wilkins goes for 150 yards last week against Vanderbilt. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think one thing that's hurt this Vanderbilt defense, it's a little small. You look around the league, look at some depth charts. Vanderbilt's got one 300-pounder. Nephi Lelau, the defensive tackle, a really good player. He's about 310. Other than that, they're going a lot of guys who are 270, 260. And 2 of the 2 starting inside linebackers are former safeties. So they're not huge guys either. So I'm not, don't pretend to be a coach or a huge X's and O's guy, but that's one of my things. I just think that this defense might be a little bit small, and that comes up in run blocking, in stopping the run.
Talking with Mitch Light from Vanderbilt. So, things got off to such a great start. 3-0, and got Alabama coming in and all the hype surrounding that, and then they just got plastered on and off the field, I'm sure. So how much of that loss really take out of them to lose 59-0? I know it's Alabama, but with so much emphasis being put on that game and so much excitement, how much of that how much did the team really lose steam-wise with that lopsided defeat?
Yeah, that's a fair point, fair question. It's hard to quantify. I would say not a ton, because they came out the next week, while the Alabama game was very disappointing, they came out the next week, and played well in Gainesville. In 17-17 at halftime, and Vanderbilt had plenty of opportunities to stay in that game. So if they would have come out the next week and just gotten, been down 21-0, their next opponent, I could say, yeah, there was a huge carryover effect. But again, they played well the next week. Maybe it's the cumulative effect. Then you got Georgia again, and that's a 41-0 game, and then you lose to Ole Miss. So I'm sure it's damaged the confidence of this team. But again, my opinion, I don't think they're 3-4 because they lost to Alabama. I think they're 3-4 because they're not playing very well and they played a tough schedule.
Mitch Light, sideline reporter at Vanderbilt. Thanks so much for the time. Safe travels back to Nashville.
All right, thanks for having me. Take care.
That's Mitch Light, sideline reporter at Vanderbilt. It's odd. I mean, after that Kansas State game, I remember talking about it on this show with you guys. It seemed like Vanderbilt was riding high, and that 3-week stretch completely killed their confidence.
Well, Alabama likes to reach in the chest and take your heart out, and that really affects you throughout maybe the next 2 games after that.
And they didn't beat Ole Miss, a team that they expected to win.
Yeah. 38-24 Florida, 45-14 to Georgia, 57-35 Ole Miss.
It made Ole Miss look like they weren't exactly in a shambles like they are. Welcome back in Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network. It is time, as we do every week here on a Friday, to talk a little NASCAR with our friend Monty Dutton, the full Monty on NASCAR, as the NASCAR Monster Truck Series heads to Martinsville this weekend, Monty. And in that round of 8, it's starting to get down in the nitty-gritty. Every point is precious. And once again, as we see with these NASCAR playoffs, seems like Martin Truex Jr. is a guy who can't be denied.
Well, I think it's almost, as a practical matter, he's going to the finals.
Yes.
Because only 3 people can win the next 3 races, and there's a 4th, and he has such a bonus point advantage that unless he does something like finish 40th in 3 straight races, he is going to the finals. So as a practical matter, they'll try to talk about, when you have so many times in NASCAR, when they say some magic number, or they point out that a person hasn't clinched, they're basically talking about numbers like if the guy didn't show up to race or didn't start the race. And so as a practical matter, he's pretty much in. And, from there on, you have these 4, you have 4 former champions, and you have 4 drivers one of whom is Truex, who haven't won a championship. And you have 2 very young drivers in Blaney and Chase Elliott. And you have a guy who's a perennial contender in Denny Hamlin. So it's just what I think NASCAR wanted. And while I'm not big on the chase at all, I think that this is better than the previous incarnations because it gives more value and it makes it more likely that there isn't going to be a driver in the final 4 who hasn't had a good year. Although it is still possible to have a driver without a win because Chase Elliott fits that profile.
It's interesting, too, as we look at this format, and I'm sure there will be the discerning of how effective it is when it's all said and done. How much of that, at least analysis, is derived from who wins?
I think that's true in most things.
Yeah.
I think that's true in Clemson, South Carolina, and Yankees, Red Sox, and the World Series, pulling for in the World Series. So I don't think that's unusual, but it is, consider, as much as matured and as much as he's accepted, and as much as he has a considerable amount of fans as well as detractors, I don't think that if Kyle Busch wins the championship, I don't think that it will be greeted as a triumph of the system as much as any number as some other guys. I think if Truex wins the championship, Truex reminds me of what Richard Petty used to say, that nobody pulled against Richard Petty. They had people they didn't like, and Petty always says is because the Chevy people hated the Ford people, and vice versa, but he drove a Plymouth, so nobody hated him in those days. So I think that Truex would be a popular champion. I don't think he's a person who has a great legion of boisterous fans, but I think he's a guy that genuinely most everybody in the sport likes.
Well, you mentioned the kind of manufacturers' wars here, and we've talked a lot this year about that with Toyota. There isn't a similar animosity amongst the drivers between, the American-made cars and the Toyotas?
Not among the drivers.
Okay.
There is among the fans. I think people like Truex, but there is an element of the fans who just don't like foreign cars being in NASCAR, which is sort of ridiculous at this point.
Very much so.
But there's an element there among diehard fans, but it's not a strong element because even they like Truex. And among drivers, I don't think there's any brand loyalty. I think if a person stays with a Chevrolet his whole career, it's because, they kept giving him, contracts. I think there's hardly any driver out there who wouldn't jump to another manufacturer in a heartbeat.
Especially if the money's there. Monty Dutton, of course, joining us here on a Friday, the full Monty on NASCAR here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network as they head to Martinsville. Tell me about this track. Who does it benefit? Who does it favor? And what kind of race are we looking at on Sunday?
Well, I think it's odd about Martinsville because one of the first things that occurred to me when I started covering racing is that Martinsville, you know, you hear people say, well, I came up on short tracks. Well, everybody came up on short tracks with a few exceptions. Danica Patrick didn't. Jimmy Johnson started out in off-road racing. But by and large, everybody started on short track. So why is it that Martinsville is such an acquired taste? Because most people have to get the hang of it. And it sort of favors people who develop the sort of patience and rhythm of all those 500 laps around this tiny little track, and who have judgment to not get in trouble because it's hard not to. You can overcome trouble at Martinsville because they don't go all that fast, so they often have cars that are, you know, a little bit beat up that sometimes can win a race. But it's fascinating to me that the track that everybody ought to take like ducks to water is the track that seems to be that one of the tracks that it takes a long time for people to get adept at. On the other hand, tracks like Daytona and Talladega, if you have a fast car, people are good immediately at the plate tracks because they're just running wide open all the way around. But I think Martinsville requires a give and take for which there are no instructions and hard and fast rules. And I think that it's sort of a type of racing that takes a while for a young driver to get used to the culture of it, almost to the etiquette of it, and the fact that oftentimes drivers who win there are people who take care of their car for 400 laps and then beat the heck out of it for the final 100.
Yeah, it's interesting as we're sitting here talking about it. I feel like a lot of the same things you're saying about Martinsville, just to make a comparison and a dichotomy, it seems like those are the same kinds of things as what we were hearing from Clemson on how to defend Georgia Tech's option offense. Because I'm sure that, you know, with that short track and as many laps as you have to run around that racetrack, in a way you kind of can get lulled into sleep because of the repetitiveness of it, but also the fact of the matter is that you can't fall asleep because of the fact that there's just not a lot of room for passing. There's a lot of traffic around there, a lot of lap traffic. This is really a race where you have to be on your keys, so to speak.
You remind me of a conversation I once had with Juan Pablo Montoya, and it was over the fact that here's another fascinating aspect of racing. Is that you would think that a driver who has spent his whole career shifting gears, going left and right, and going uphill and down, would have an easy time on an oval. But that's not the case at all historically. And I asked Montoya about that, and he said that it was because there was no idle time. He said that a much larger percentage of every lap is with the car on the edge of adhesion, slipping out of control. And that when you're in road racing, you go down a turn and down a long straightaway, and there's, you know, it's pretty relaxing, and then you have to set up for the turn. So he said the unremitting intensity is what makes it difficult for career road racers to adapt to stock car racing.
That was interesting because I've always wondered, you know, and even still, you know, the transfer from, you know, the open wheel racing to, you know, the cockpit racing. That's certainly something, obviously, too, that many drivers have had to go back and forth as far as that goes, and I'm sure he's at least a great example of that. I know Tony Stewart did IndyCar for a while, and a lot of those guys too. It's a hard transition.
Well, some people can adapt and some people can't. I mean, they're just a handful of people in every generation who could go fast in anything with four wheels. One time Tony Stewart told me that he had bought some Greyhounds, and I said, "Let me get this straight, Tony. You're telling me that you love racing so much that they don't have to have wheels." But it's just odd that really the reverse is more true.
Right.
Historically, if you look at guys like A.J. Foyt, Mario Andretti, short track, I mean, oval racers adapt to road courses better than the reverse, and that seems irrational.
We got like 30 seconds. Monty, give me a real quick pick.
I think I'll pick Jimmy Johnson because he's really good at Martinsville, and it'll put a charge into everybody who'll start worrying about that 8th championship.
The Monty is full. Thanks so much for the time. We appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me.
That's Monty Dutton joining us here on Sports Talk South Carolina Radio Network. We'll put a bow on the week when we come back on Sports Talk.
All right, coming up in just a few minutes, we've got ACC Friday Night Football up in Boston. Florida State and Boston College doing their thing in a little bit. Florida State is a 6-point favorite. That line has climbed to 6 points.
Wonder if they asked Jimbo Fisher how much he hates playing on Friday night because of high school football.
I'm sure he would tell him that he does hate it. Sports Talk brought to you by South Carolina soybean farmers and their checkoff. Learn more at scsoybeans.org. Pork powered by soy.
They didn't ask that about Steve Adazio, though, because I'm sure the bastion of high school football that is in Boston, they're probably all shivering their butts off right now.
Steve Adazio used to be OC at Florida years ago, did he not?
He did.
Mm-hmm. And we're brought to you by, of course, our good friends at South Carolina Electric Cooperative, sponsors of the annual Touchstone Energy Cooperatives Bowl. And you can find out more about what the co-ops are doing all across the state. Visit ecsc.org. And December 9th, of course, that date for the Touchstone Energy North-South game. And make sure you get your tickets in advance. It is cheaper to do so, $15 until November 24th, and the price goes up by $5. Go to their website, touchstoneenergybowl.com. And, of course, you'll also have a chance to learn the winner of the Mr. Football Award in South Carolina at halftime of the game. You can vote for your favorites. Not going to influence the result, but just in terms of something to discuss, the website is scliving.coop/football.
The Palmetto Bowl had a very unique set of the rivalry today in the National Football League because we had people on both sides of that in a bit of a war of words, or at least a war of words from one side and then action from the other, with Bob McNair going up against DeAndre Hopkins today.
Yeah, Bob McNair in a meeting with other owners, that meeting they had
last week.
Yeah, and it's not allegedly said or apparently said because he came out and apologized for it. But basically, he used the well-worn phrase that, don't let the inmates run the prison, as he put it, instead of the
asylum.
Usually you say asylum. Yeah, but you know what?
Wouldn't have been good either way.
NFL football players, I'm sorry, in my opinion, you guys have got really thin skin. And Nuke Hopkins, I'm sorry, I'd have to sit you if I'm coaching the Texans. I'd have to fine you and sit you. I don't know in today's age if coach will do that, but he's right. First of all, you're in a meeting of your fellow owners and you're talking about trying to hold things together the way you view it, and you're hemorrhaging TV ratings and you're hemorrhaging attendance right now. These are major issues that NFL owners have to discuss, and it's been generated here this year at least because of what's been happening with some players and the national anthem. And so, his comment to the owners, and we don't know what else was said in the content of his conversations and in what exact context he meant it, but obviously he was saying, look, we can't let the players tell us what to do as the owners. It's supposed to be the other way around. They work for us. We don't work for them. Unfortunately, as I see it, from the commissioner's office on down through ownership, with just a couple of exceptions, they have been very weak-kneed in dealing with this situation with the players from the very beginning. Of course, my feeling is every player should stand for the national anthem, and that's that. You should stand for the national anthem. It's a tradition in our country that, look, I know it doesn't date back to the 1500s and all that. I know it's something that was developed here in the last century that we started doing that, but it's a nice tradition. And people who are in the stands, the fans by and large over the years, have enjoyed respecting the flag and the anthem along with the athletes. And I think it's something that should be continued and not used as a political pawn.
Here's the problem. There is a selective amount of sensitivity when it comes to these type of things. And I don't think that the NFL was sensitive enough, at least from the owner's perspective, to the issues of the players. And I also think that we are getting
which issue?
The issue of why the players are protesting. And I'm not saying that that's the correct way to do so, but the fact of the matter is the biggest problem on the NFL's eyes right now is the fact that the vast majority of the news about its league is stuff that's not happening on the field. And that is why you are seeing what you're seeing from the standpoint of, people tuning out or, it being talked about more on news shows and things of that nature. That's the biggest problem that the NFL has right now. And I think part of the meetings were basically to try and say, okay, we see the issue, we hear the issue, we want to help with the issue. We also want to get the issue away from the national anthem. Now, this is only going to exacerbate the issue. And I think that's the biggest problem that we have right now, is because we have selective sensitivity. We can be sensitive about the issues that the players bring to the table, but now the sensitivity goes into a hyperdrive based on an off-color comment that, honestly, Bob McNair shouldn't have made.
And also,
I see nothing wrong with this comment. What's wrong with saying to your fellow owners, we can't let the inmates run the asylum because we are the ones who sign the checks.
Let Pro speak.
We are the ones who set the rules for our business.
Let Pro
Phil,
speak.
It's in the vernacular when people look at it. You have to look into the context of who you're talking to. And when your league is 75% African American, and you say prison,
come on,
yes,
bro.
That's why everybody's angry right now.
Well, that's stupid.
I'm telling you,
you cannot be that super sensitive to that.
Yes, you have
well,
to.
Then you know what? There's no talking to
because
you.
there's
no dealing with.
No,
it.
because
you're going to be sensitive to everything.
No, because one of the protests is how the justice system has affected minorities. So it was just a bad way to do it. Now, I understand he comes from a different era, and I think the players should understand that here's a guy in his 70s, and he made a statement, and he apologized for it. Now, the other reason we're talking about the NFL ratings dropping, to me, has nothing to do with this protest. It has to do everything with oversaturation, these Thursday night games, and these games in London.
It's all related.
The market is oversaturated.
In my opinion, it's all related.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is too much of what is being talked about in the NFL is, all the stuff that's happening off the field, but also, like you said, the level of play is not up to the standard that we are used to seeing.
All right. Well, again, I couldn't disagree with you more, Pro, about the comment. To me, it's a harmless comment. And if you're a football player who gets upset about something like that, I mean, my God, you have much worse said to you on the field by your competitors than something that one of the team owners said. If you're going to be that sensitive about it, then so be it. But there's no dealing with you. In my mind,
why would he apologize if it was?
If it was
he has no choice. He had, his people got around him and said, "Hey, you got to apologize because you know what? Everybody's
team wanted to walk out of the
upset."
building. The entire team wanted to walk out of the building.
Let them walk. Let them walk.
I don't know about that.
And hold their paychecks. We'll see how far they walk when they don't get paid. Now,
and their attorneys will come too because they make pretty good cash.
Let's get to our picks from the panel for this week in our dying seconds here, because I don't let the inmates run this asylum. Why
are we inmates?
It is Bobby Harton, the big kahuna, still leading 23-17 after a 2-3 week. Yours truly, along with the bad boy, 22-18. Bad boy went 3-2 last week. I went 2-3. At 20-20, Willie P after a 3-2 week. 18-22 is Pro after a 2-3 week. 16-24 each. Matt the Newsman, Kev Cohen. Matt the Newsman struggling last week at 1-4. So, Florida, Georgia. I'm taking Florida. I like the points. The bad boys taking Florida. Everybody else is taking Georgia. NC State, Notre Dame.
Go Irish.
I'm taking State. Pro's taking State. You're taking the Irish.
Mm-hmm.
Bad boys taking State. Everybody else is taking Notre Dame. Penn State, Ohio State. Again, a bit of a split here. I like Penn State. I like those points.
I like Penn State.
Yeah, you got Penn State. Pro's got Ohio State. South Carolina, Vanderbilt. Only Matt the Newsman is taking Vandy in the points. Clemson and Georgia Tech. You're taking Tech?
I take the points.
Kev Cohen's taking Tech. So are Bobby and Allen. I'm taking Tigers, laying the 14. We'll find out about it all tomorrow night. Follow Will at USC and me at Clemson tomorrow. Have a great night.
Right.